Bennett woke with a jolt, her heart racing before her mind had even caught up. The red digits on the bedside clock read 5:02 a.m. No one knocked at that hour unless something was terribly wrong. She pulled on the old sweatshirt that hung over her chair and made her way down the narrow hallway, her bare feet cold against the wooden floorboards. The pounding came again. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the quiet house. Clara hesitated, fingers hovering over the latch. Through the frosted glass, she saw the outline of a man. Tall, tense, almost shaking. When she opened the door, Nathan Cole, her next-door neighbor, stood there. His face was pale, his eyes darting over his shoulder as though someone might be following him. "Don't go to work today," he said, his voice low and breathless. "Stay home, Clara. Please, just trust me." It was still dark when the knocking began. A hard, urgent sound that didn't belong to morning. Clara, for a moment, she could only stare. Nathan was the sort of neighbor who barely nodded when they passed in the driveway. Quiet, polite, private. He'd moved into the house next door less than a year ago and never gave anyone reason to notice him. But now he looked like a man who'd seen something he couldn't unsee. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "Has something happened?" He shook his head slowly. His breathing was uneven, but his eyes held a strange, fierce certainty. "I can't explain right now. Just promise me. Don't leave the house today. Not for anything." Clara's pulse quickened. She wanted to laugh it off, to tell him he must be mistaken. But something in his tone stopped her. The early morning light was just beginning to paint a pale pink across the horizon. The cold air bit at her skin. None of this felt real. "Nathan, you're scaring me," she said quietly. "Why shouldn't I go?" He hesitated, eyes flicking past her shoulder, as if expecting someone to appear behind her. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "You'll understand by noon." Before she could respond, he stepped back and walked away, his pace quick and restless. He didn't look back once. Clara stood there in the open doorway, the chill of dawn creeping through her sleeves. Every rational part of her mind told her this was absurd. Maybe he'd been drinking. Maybe he was having some sort of breakdown. Yet the look in his eyes, pure, desperate fear, lodged itself deep inside her. She closed the door and leaned against it, trying to slow her breathing. It wasn't the first strange thing that had happened lately. 3 months earlier, her father had died suddenly. The coroner had called it a stroke, but Clara had never been fully convinced. In the week before his death, he'd been trying to tell her something. Something about their family. Something important. He'd used that word again and again, but he'd never explained what it meant. Then, before she could ask more, he was gone. Since then, there had been incidents. A black car parked outside her house for hours. Engine off, tinted windows hiding whoever sat inside. Unanswered phone calls from unknown numbers. Always silent on the other end. Her sister Emma, who lived in Ireland, had even asked recently if anyone new had moved into the area. Clara had laughed it off at the time, but now, after Nathan's visit, the laughter felt hollow. She was 32, a senior accountant at Bradley and Hurst Financial, and lived alone in the small house she'd inherited from her grandmother on the outskirts of Bristol. Her life was quiet, orderly, predictable, the kind of stability she'd built after years of disappointment. But as she stood there that morning, her world suddenly felt paper thin. She went to the kitchen and poured herself a cup of coffee, trying to push away the unease crawling through her chest. If Nathan was wrong, she'd simply waste a day. If he was right, She might never know what she'd avoided. She texted her manager, "Personal emergency. Won't be in today." Then she waited. The hours crept by in uneasy silence. The refrigerator's hum sounded louder than usual. Every floorboard creak made her tense. She checked the clock every 10 minutes. By 11:30 a.m., nothing had happened. The world outside looked perfectly normal. A dog barking down the street, the faint sound of traffic. She started to feel foolish for believing any of it. Then the phone rang. The caller ID flashed unknown number. Her stomach tightened as she answered. "Ms. Bennett," a calm voice said. "This is Detective Harris from the Metropolitan Police. Are you aware of an incident at your workplace this morning?" Clara froze. "What incident?" "There's been a violent attack," he said carefully. "Several employees are injured. We have reason to believe you were present." "What?" Her throat went dry. "No, I wasn't there. I've been home all morning." There was a pause. Too long. Too deliberate. "Ms. Bennett," the detective continued, "your vehicle was recorded arriving at the building at 8:02 a.m. Your work ID was used to enter the 3rd floor. You were seen on CCTV before the event occurred." Her grip on the phone tightened. "That's impossible. I'm telling you, I've been here." "Can anyone verify that?" he asked. She looked around her silent house. The ticking clock was the only witness. "No," she whispered. "I live alone." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Cooler, more official. "At 11:47 a.m., a state of emergency was triggered at your office. You were reported missing from the scene. Units will be arriving shortly for your safety. And for questioning." The line went dead. Clara's breath came shallow and fast. She stared at the silent phone, her mind spinning. If she hadn't gone to work, then who had? Who was using her car, her ID, her name? And then a thought hit her like ice. Nathan had known. The police arrived less than 30 minutes later. 2 officers, in plain clothes, polite but unmistakably wary. Their unmarked grey Vauxhall idled outside Clara's house as neighbors peeked through curtains, curious but pretending not to be. Miss Bennett, the taller officer, Detective Harris, introduced himself, his tone calm but clipped. His partner, Sergeant Lewis, stood a few steps behind, eyes quietly scanning the interior, as if danger might still be hiding somewhere among the bookshelves and coffee cups. Clara invited them in, though her hands trembled slightly as she did. The air in the house felt heavy, as though holding its breath. "Can you tell me what's happened?" she asked, her voice thinner than she'd intended. Harris set his notebook on the table. "There was a serious incident at your workplace this morning. An explosion on the 3rd floor of Bradley and Hurst. Initial evidence suggests arson. 3 employees are in critical condition." Her mind reeled. That's impossible. I wasn't there." He nodded, but his expression didn't soften. "And yet," he said slowly, "several witnesses saw someone they believe was you entering the building just before 8 a.m. You drove your silver Mini Cooper, used your employee pass, and even spoke to the receptionist." Clara felt her stomach twist. "No, I didn't leave the house. My car's in the drive. You can check." Lewis stepped to the window, glanced outside, and exchanged a look with Harris. "Car's gone," he said quietly. Clara froze. "What?" She rushed to the door and looked out. The driveway was empty. Nothing but the wet shimmer of early afternoon rain. She felt the ground shift beneath her. Her car, her ID, her face. Someone had taken it all. Whoever that was, she said hoarsely. It wasn't me. Harris studied her for a long moment. His gaze wasn't unkind, but it was analytical, measured. The look of a man weighing possibilities. Can anyone confirm you were home all morning? No, she admitted. I live alone, but my neighbor, Nathan Cole, he came by early, around 5. He told me not to go to work today. That caught Harris's attention. Did he say why? He said I'd understand by noon. Lewis scribbled something quickly in his notepad. Do you know where this neighbor is now? Clara shook her head. No, I haven't seen him since, but he seemed frightened, like he knew something was about to happen. The detectives exchanged another look. Harris closed his notebook. We'll need to speak with him. Do you have any idea where he works? He never said much about himself. He's private. I thought he worked in IT. Keeps odd hours. Harris rose to his feet. All right, we'll have a car stationed nearby for your safety. In the meantime, don't leave the property. As they left, Clara stood at the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Her mind raced through the morning's events. She thought of Nathan's warning, the car disappearing, the police call. None of it fit together, unless someone wanted her erased. At 6 p.m., her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. Don't talk to them. They'll never believe you. Meet me where the bridge ends. 7:15. Come alone. No name. But she knew the number. It was Nathan's. Her first instinct was to call the police immediately, but something stopped her. The message felt urgent, desperate, and deep down, she needed answers. About her car, her name, her father's death. By 7:05, she was walking along the Clifton Suspension Bridge. The sky dark and the wind biting through her coat. The city lights glittered below like restless ghosts. Nathan emerged from the shadows near the railings. His hood pulled low. His face looked thinner, older somehow, as though he hadn't slept in days. You shouldn't have texted me, she said quietly. And you shouldn't have stayed, he replied. They're already watching your house. Clara stepped closer, heart pounding. Nathan, what's happening? My car's gone. The police think I attacked my own office. Someone's pretending to be me. He nodded grimly. I know. That's why I came. Then tell me the truth, she demanded. Who's behind this? Nathan hesitated, glancing toward the far end of the bridge. Your father wasn't who you think he was, he said finally. And neither are you. Her stomach dropped. What are you talking about? He worked for a branch of the Home Office, something called the Mirror Unit. It doesn't officially exist. Their job was to create alternate identities, replicas, for undercover operations. When one of their agents died, they'd insert someone new, rebuild their life, alter records, rewrite history. But sometimes, he looked at her carefully. Sometimes the copies got loose. Clara stared at him, the words barely making sense. Copies? You mean identities? No, he said softly. I mean people. She shook her head. That's insane. He stepped closer. Is it? Someone out there looks exactly like you, moves like you, even knows how you think. That person walked into your office this morning. That person set the fire. The wind howled between them. Clara's voice trembled. You're telling me I'm part of some government experiment? I'm telling you your father tried to protect you when he found out. Nathan said. He wanted to pull you out, to disappear you before they did. But he didn't make it in time. She felt her knees weaken. Why would you know all this? Because I was one of them, he said quietly. I worked in Mirror Unit. I owed your father my life. He asked me to watch you, to warn you if they came back. Clara's mind spun, fragments of memory colliding. Her father's late-night calls, the hidden lockbox he'd kept in his study, the half-burned photographs she'd found after the funeral. "Then why now?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why come to me today?" "Because they've activated your double," Nathan said. "And once that happens, the original becomes a liability." Before Clara could respond, a dark van turned onto the far side of the bridge. Headlights cutting through the mist, Nathan's eyes widened. "Run!" he whispered. She didn't hesitate. The sound of boots hit the pavement behind them. Heavy, synchronized. Someone shouted her name, but she didn't look back. The city blurred into streaks of light and rain as she sprinted across the bridge, heart pounding like a drum. By the time she reached the end, Nathan was gone. All that remained was the echo of his last words. "Find the lockbox." He hid everything inside. By the time Clara reached her house, the rain had turned relentless, hammering the roof like a warning she couldn't ignore. The street was unnaturally quiet, the glow of the streetlights blurring through the mist. Her lungs ached from running, her coat soaked through. But she didn't stop until she was inside, the door locked and bolted behind her. Her reflection in the hallway mirror startled her. Pale, wide-eyed, dripping rainwater. She barely recognized herself. Nathan's words echoed in her head. Find the lockbox. He hid everything inside. She didn't know what frightened her more. The idea that someone had stolen her identity, or that Nathan's story about copies might not be fiction at all. The study was the coldest room in the house. It had once belonged to her father, David Bennett, a quiet man who spent nights surrounded by files, maps, and coded notebooks. He'd always claimed his work at the Ministry of Transport was dull. Numbers, logistics, reports. But Clara remembered the locked drawers, the late-night phone calls in hushed voices, the way he'd sometimes look at her, as though trying to memorize her face. She knelt beside the heavy oak desk and started pulling at the drawers one by one. Nothing but old receipts, yellowed papers, and a photograph of her parents before she was born. Then, behind the lowest drawer, her hand brushed against something solid. A small, metal box wedged into the gap between the base and the backboard. It was blackened by age, cold to the touch, and sealed with a rusted clasp. She carried it to the kitchen, grabbed a screwdriver, and pried it open. Inside, neatly arranged beneath a faded cloth, were a USB drive, an old passport with her photograph, but a different name. Clara Dawson, born in Manchester, and a letter handwritten, the ink slightly smudged, as though written in haste. She unfolded it with trembling hands. "My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, it means I failed to protect you. You must know the truth before they erase it again. The person you believe yourself to be, the life you remember, was constructed. You are part of an experimental identity program known as Mirror Unit. Your memories were overwritten, your records replaced. You were not meant to remember who you were before, but something went wrong. You became stable, too self-aware. They shut the project down, but fragments of the old data remain in you. That's why they'll come. The version they made after you, your duplicate, is active again. If she has already made contact, she is dangerous. She believes she is you. Trust no one, not even those claiming to protect you. Nathan can help you. He was my inside contact, the only one who knows both sides. Use the drive. It holds your real birth record and one video file. The password is your mother's middle name. Dad Clara sank into a chair, the letter shaking in her grip. Her memories, the childhood birthdays, her university years, even the smell of her mother's perfume, all suddenly felt fragile, like scenes from someone else's dream. She stared at the passport again. Same face, same eyes, different life. At that moment, headlights flashed outside. 2 cars stopping across the street, black, unmarked. Her pulse surged. They'd found her. She ran upstairs, clutching the lockbox, and ducked into her bedroom. Through a gap in the curtain, she saw men in dark jackets stepping out of the vehicles. One of them lifted a radio to his mouth. Clara's mind raced. She had no time to think, only to act. She opened her laptop, plugged in the USB drive, and typed her mother's middle name, Evelyn. The drive opened instantly. Inside were 2 folders, identity, root, video. She clicked the video. The screen flickered, then came into focus. A dimly lit room, a man sitting at a table. Her father. He looked older than she remembered. Eyes hollow, voice tense. Clara, if you ever see this, it means they've released her. Your mirror. The process was never meant to continue, but they refused to destroy the data. You were the only success, the only stable copy. The original, he hesitated, glancing off camera. The original didn't survive. Clara felt her breath catch. You are not a clone, he continued. Not in the way you think. You are a reconstruction. Rebuilt from fragments of memory, personality, and DNA. Everything you remember is a mixture of truth and fabrication. But you are still you. You are the one who lived. They just don't want you to believe that. The video ended abruptly, the sound of a door slamming echoing in the background. Clara sat frozen. The world felt like it was tilting beneath her. She wanted to scream, to deny it, to make it all untrue. But before she could gather her thoughts, glass shattered downstairs. Someone had broken in. She yanked the drive from the laptop and slipped it into her coat pocket. The footsteps below were quiet but deliberate. Whoever they weren't here to talk. She crept toward the hallway, every board creaking beneath her feet. From the top of the stairs, she saw a shadow move. Tall, slender, gloved hands holding a silenced pistol. The intruder looked up for a heartbeat. Their eyes met. Clara's pulse stopped. Because the face staring back at her was hers. Her double. The same brown eyes. The same freckle above the lip. The same shape of fear reflected back at her. Don't, Clara whispered. Please. But the other version smiled. Not kindly, but coldly. Almost curious. You shouldn't have come back, the double said. You were supposed to stay gone. Then she raised the gun. Clara turned and ran. The shot tore through the air, splintering the wall beside her as she bolted toward the back of the house. Rain slammed against the kitchen window as she pushed through the back door and sprinted into the garden. Behind her, another shot cracked. She stumbled through the mud, across the hedges, into the darkness beyond. The cold air burned her lungs, her heartbeat deafening in her ears. She didn't stop running until the houses vanished behind her, and the night swallowed her whole. The storm had followed her into the woods. Rain fell in heavy sheets, turning the ground to mud, the trees to dark silhouettes twisting in the wind. Clara's breath came in ragged bursts as she stumbled deeper into the forest, her soaked clothes clinging to her like a second skin. Every sound, the crack of a branch, the echo of thunder, made her spin around. She could still hear faint shouts behind her. Whoever that woman was, whatever she was, she wouldn't stop. Clara's mind raced. Her double looked exactly like her, down to the smallest detail, but there was something unnatural in her movements. Smooth, precise, almost rehearsed. She reached a small clearing, the faint outline of an abandoned train signal station rising from the dark. Its windows were broken, its walls tagged with graffiti. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, dripping water onto the concrete floor. The silence that followed was unbearable. She found a dusty lantern and lit it, the weak glow flickering across the walls. Her father's voice echoed in her head. You are still you. You were the one who lived. But if that were true, then who was the other Clara? She pulled the USB drive from her pocket and stared at it. Somewhere inside this little piece of metal was the truth, but there was no way to read it now. Her laptop was still back at the house. Suddenly, movement, a shadow passed by the broken window. Clara froze, her hand tightening around the lantern. A quiet voice came from the doorway. You shouldn't run from yourself. The double stepped into the light, rain glistening on her hair. She wore the same coat, the same expression, except colder, sharper. Her eyes unreadable. Who are you? Clara whispered. I'm you. The double replied softly. The one they kept. Clara shook her head. No, you're not real. The other woman smiled faintly. That's what he told you, wasn't it? Your father. He couldn't bear to tell you what you were. A test that worked too well. When they rebuilt you, he saw something human in you, something they didn't, so he ran. And he made me to replace you when you disappeared. Clara's chest tightened. He said you were dangerous. The double took a step closer, lowering the gun slightly. Dangerous? Maybe, but not to you. To them. Clara's eyes flicked to the gun. Then why did you try to kill me? I didn't, the double said. I tried to stop them. The men at the house weren't police. They were retrieval. They think you've still got something. Data from the mirror unit that could expose them. I fired to scare you off, not to kill you. Clara's pulse hammered in her throat. Why should I believe that? Because if I wanted you dead, her double said quietly, you wouldn't be standing here. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm howled through the broken windows. Thunder, rolling like the growl of something ancient. Then Clara asked the question she'd been afraid to speak aloud. Which one of us is the real Clara Bennett? The double hesitated. And that was answer enough. Clara stepped back. You don't know. The double's expression faltered. Does it matter? You have her memories, her feelings, her guilt. You remember your father, don't you? The way he laughed. The way he looked at you when you passed your exams. None of that was fake. He loved both of us. Tears blurred Clara's vision. Then why destroy me? I'm not here to destroy you, the double said. I'm here to replace you. Because they won't stop hunting you until one of us is gone. They can't allow two Claras to exist. Clara's hand brushed against the lantern's metal base. Then they'll have to kill us both. The double tilted her head, almost sadly. You really are like him. Before either could move, headlights cut through the rain outside. Harsh, blinding beams, sweeping across the clearing. The rumble of engines followed. Nathan's voice shouted from the darkness. Clara, get down! Gunfire exploded, shattering the window above them. The double spun toward the sound, firing back with swift precision. Clara dropped to the floor, covering her head as bullets tore through the walls. Nathan burst through the side door, a pistol in one hand, blood trickling from his temple. We're out of time, he shouted. The double turned her aim toward him, but then stopped. Her hand trembled. For the first time, her mask slipped, and something human flickered behind her eyes. Nathan raised his gun, but didn't shoot. "Don't," he said quietly. "If you kill her, you kill yourself." Clara stared at them both. "Nathan, what do you mean?" He kept his eyes on the double. "They built you from the same neural map. You share a feedback system. If one dies, the other collapses. It's their failsafe. To keep you loyal." The double looked shaken. "That's not possible." "It is," Nathan said grimly. "I saw the files. I was there." For a long, breathless moment, the world seemed to hold still. Then the double lowered the gun. "I'm not going back," she said softly. Before either of them could stop her, she turned the weapon toward the window and fired. Not at Clara, not at Nathan, but at the men outside. The return fire was instant and brutal. Bullets tore through the walls. The double stumbled, hit once in the chest, falling backward onto the floor. Clara screamed, crawling to her side. The double's hand gripped hers, blood staining both palms. Her voice was faint but calm. "They can't control what they don't understand. Don't let them rewrite us again." Her eyes flickered once, then went still. Nathan pulled Clara to her feet. "We have to go. Now." They ran through the back door, vanishing into the storm as sirens wailed in the distance. Epilogue. 1 year later, London 2019. The rain had returned, softer this time. Inside a small cafe in Camden, Clara sat alone, sipping her coffee and watching the crowd through the window. Her hair was shorter now, dyed darker, her features slightly altered by surgery, enough to keep her invisible. Nathan entered quietly, taking the seat across from her. He looked older, wearier. "They've closed the mirror unit," he said. "Officially it never existed. Unofficially, they're still cleaning up." Clara nodded, silent. He reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table. The USB drive. "You sure you want to do this? Once it's out there, you can't take it back." She stared at it for a long time. "People deserve to know." He studied her. "And if they come for you again," she gave a faint smile, "then they'll find a ghost." Nathan smiled too, sad but proud. "You really are your father's daughter." As he left, Clara looked down at her reflection in the dark window. For a second, she thought she saw movement, her own face smiling back, slightly out of sync. But when she blinked, it was gone. Outside, the rain fell harder, and somewhere, buried deep in a forgotten government server, Mirror Unit came online again.